All right, traders, we're back. We're at episode 5.
Wow.
Wow. We're still on the air.
Episode 5,
Yeah.
An Old Hope.
Everything's late and nobody dies.
True.
Um,
Couldn't be more true right now.
so today's episode, we're going to talk about quality. On episode 3, the conversation was, what is an indie comic? And in the live chat, because we do a premiere Monday, in the live chat, one of the regular viewers, aggressively relaxing, got a little aggressive.
Okay.
He's
not so relaxed.
He's got an opinion on this subject, and he's very much a big fan of the Big Two, and is in the course of the discussion what he was talking about. He really takes it to heart when people say that there's a lack in quality in the Big Two.
Okay.
I think the original comment was something to the effect that it was referring to more to the paper quality. And,
Right.
Everybody knows, and me more than anybody knows, the decline of Marvel paper quality in the last two years.
Yeah.
And the reasoning behind that, and we can touch on that. But he was defending them from an artistic standpoint.
Okay.
So, so today's conversation, let's cover both the physical quality of our books, because there's a big difference between all parties, and the quality of the stories, the artwork, and all that type of stuff.
Just,
Not a sponsor.
we are looking for a sponsor.
Yeah.
I'm just so you know.
We want to be sponsored by Tiny Dr. Pepper.
Tiny Dr. Pepper. Pre-med Dr. Pepper. Okay. Oh, yeah, quality. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, paper quality, it's getting worse and worse. I have been told that it was a result of Marvel just needing to print more, and they couldn't, because they all, during the pandemic, they all had like, okay, this is where your print run stops. We can only do this much. There's a paper shortage, there's an employee shortage, there's a driver shortage, there's a shipping shortage, there's a shortage. That's the only thing there's not, is a shortage.
Right.
So they were like, oh yeah, well, I don't know, hey, we gotta do more than that. We're Disney, And they said, well, back here, like in the bathroom or something, we got all this really just shitty paper, not toilet paper. We got this terrible paper back here in the back room, why don't we just grab that? Then you can do as much as you want.
Well,
that's what I've heard. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I've heard.
That's actually pretty close.
Okay.
What has happened is, and so I obviously coming at this from the point of view where I am where I do pressing and cleaning, and I work with a paper a lot. So the interior pages are printed on a lighter weight paper, and because of that, they have a distinct difference in the amount of ink, the amount of varnish that is used to print on those pages. Covers, which are printed on a much heavier stock, even a regular book is printed on much heavier stock normally. Because it's heavier stock, they can use thicker inks, thicker varnishes, different varnishes, to make those covers really pop.
Right.
What happened is the cover paper, because of the shortage, was no longer available. So they were just using the same paper that they use for the interior of the book.
And that makes sense.
Without adjusting the inks.
That fully makes sense. And because that's Spider-Punk #1 looked like UPS just took the box out of the bathtub and handed it to me. It was wavy, and it was terrible. And it was really, really bad.
And I think that we saw that a lot more with Marvel than with any of the others. Now, there's only, I don't know the exact number, but I think it's 3. I think there are 3 companies that print comic books for all publishers.
Okay.
And Marvel and DC both use 2 of those 3.
All right.
So, you got 1, 2, and you got A, B, and C. Marvel uses A and B, and DC uses B and C. So they do cross over with that B.
Yeah.
And we have seen a little bit of an issue, not as much with DC as Marvel, because normally DC uses a heavier
Yeah, like a
cover
card,
stock.
yeah, and especially the card stocks, and
Right,
know,
and it
just,
didn't really affect card stocks at all.
yeah. I don't know. I think that it is. I was actually going to call them in as damages until I realized every single one of them was like that.
Right.
And then, I did have a couple of damages, and they were the ones that were just so bad. There's just no way I could do it.
Yeah. And it affected some major runs. I mean,
Yeah.
Werewolf by Night #1 is notorious, and there is such a thing in the industry as Marvel Black. Is something we all know. Marvel Yellow and Marvel Red. So when you have one of those three colors is the primary color on your cover,
Yeah.
then you really notice the difference because they have to put them on different. They lay them on thicker.
Yeah.
Marvel Yellow prior to prior to the current age, modern, whatever. Like back in the 80s, anything before 90, anything with Marvel Yellow on, it's horrible. But now the red is.
You're saying that's like the worst to clean, right?
It is. The yellow's the worst thing there is to clean on a cover because you can never, just barely touching it with whatever you're using to dry clean will automatically fog it and turn it into a white smudge, and it's horrible. It really is.
No, white looks better on covers anyways. You just do your own cover, sign it at the bottom.
There you go.
Yeah, sign that Amazing Fantasy 15 right at the bottom there. That's your art.
But so there are some major books, and the one that really is standing out at the moment is that Werewolf by Night #1 because that's getting to be such a big book. But it is practically all a dark cover, and every single one of them just really wavy. Because that ink was put on so thick, they didn't adjust the ink levels at the printer. And it is what it is. And it's really hard to press that out as well. We can often make them look a bit better, but without doing serious damage and taking the chance of pebbling the book, it's really impossible to get
pebbling the book,
out.
if you guys don't know what that means, it means somebody throws rocks at
It looks like it.
a book, and then Eric is sad.
I'm really sad.
That's what it means, right? Yeah.
Unless,
Okay, good. Our producer says yes.
Unless somebody else has pebbled it and I get to fix it, that makes me feel important.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah. Then you can rock it.
Right on.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Get stoned and rock it, yo.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
No, that was good. It was good.
for the most part, that's the complaint is those covers. I don't really see anybody complaining about interiors of books as far as production quality.
Well, interiors have always been a little wavy and whatever, and nobody really cares that much about it. The last time I remember something like this happening with covers was Ultimate Spider-Man. Because at first they had those really nice cardstock covers on all the Ultimate stuff. And they were like, oh, they're $225 instead of, whatever. So it's, ooh, $225, man. Okay, well, it's an extra quarter or so, but, we can do that. We'll make that happen. And the covers were so nice, and that's why I pulled the #1 out of this collection. And, if you are careful with them, they're beautiful. I mean, that one I pulled out of here was basically perfect. But if you don't handle them correctly, and you get a bend in them, then you got a color break, you got a ruined book, really.
Right.
You'll see in a second that thing's bent. And then after a couple of years, they went to that really flimsy cover.
Right.
And that was when, they did like Ultimate Carnage, Ultimate Venom, and Ultimate blah, 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 whatever. And those covers are awful. They're really bad. They would come and they were just like this. They'd be kind of wavy and sort of wrinkly and everything. And they would, you sneeze and they rip. It's really bad.
Yeah.
But that's the last time I remember something like this happening with covers. And that's been a while. It's been, a good probably 20 years.
Right.
Close to it, I guess.
And I do think that we're seeing in the last, 3-4 weeks, the quality improving on our covers.
It is better.
From Marvel.
Yeah, they're a lot better. I was really scared when I saw that Spider-Punk. I was like, oh, God, this is what we're going to be in for until the paper shortage is done.
That one was bad. That one was pretty bad.
Which the paper shortage. I mean, let's be real here. The paper shortage is not going to be done. We're in a permanent shortage, and they're going to have to find ways, to get around that and to put the comics out.
Right.
That I feel like the production, distribution, everything is so broken right now. It's going to be a long time, if at all, that we get out of this.
Well, it seems that they've realized what the issue is.
Yeah.
And it isn't that they've gone back to a heavier paper stock.
They're printing it different.
They're printing it different. They're using less ink. They're adjusting the ink levels on the covers to compensate for that. And we haven't been seeing as many issues. I see quite a few that have kind of the waves just up at the very top of the book.
Yeah, they're not that bad though. They're not anything like that other one.
Yeah, it was
nothing.
across the whole book. It really looks like somebody sprayed it down with a hose and then set it out to dry.
Yep.
A lot of them look horrible.
Yeah. And that's, when you get the guys in that, sit them down, they're all looking like that, and they want to make sure everything's perfect, and I'm just like, nothing's perfect, man.
Yeah.
Nothing's perfect. You're not going to get a perfect book. And I know, but I just want the best I can get. And I understand that.
Yeah.
I get that. You want the best book that you're going to get for your money. But some of these things you're just not going to get a great condition book. That's just the way it is.
But it kind of, the plus side of that is if you have somebody that knows how to press a book, does a good job, you can press that out. And then what you have compared to what came off the newsstand is so much better.
Right.
Maybe that will get a better grade.
Yeah.
And then with those heavier stocks, it's just the opposite. If you put a little thumb bend in a cardstock cover, that's not coming out.
No.
Ever.
That quality, obviously, as things go, and I feel like, the bigger corporations that take over the smaller companies, again, we've got AT&T, Discovery, which I think is just one company.
Right.
We've got Disney, you got all the stuff, man. And it's like, the more, I fear the day that Boom gets bought out by a big corporation or a movie company or something, because their quality is going to go down.
Right.
Like their physical, actual, print quality, things like that. And it's going to go down. There's no way they can keep up, this sort of thing. Now, they have way too many variants, I feel, but they're really cool.
Yeah.
But, the quality of them is really, really good. Like those die-cut covers they're doing for Something Is Killing the Children or Tig or whatever people call it, because nobody can say the actual words anymore. We have to abbreviate everything now.
Sick.
Yeah, ES. Yo. Those are really, really cool covers, but I fear that if that gets taken over by, it seems like all the quality that goes down just a little bit.
Right.
The DC cardstock is I think maybe the exception to the rule, because that's still really good
those
stuff.
B covers,
those
DC
are
B
really,
covers.
really nice quality and nice
Right.
print quality and things like that. But, the other stuff, it seems like just the A covers are just, put them out there or whatever.
Right.
Not the greatest paper.
And that varies a lot with, by far, Marvel is the one that's brought up the most as having the worst quality A covers.
Right, yeah.
So we see a big differentiation between all of that. I think, Scout, Source Point Press, a lot of these kind of mid-level character companies are putting out equivalent, maybe a little bit better than what DC's doing. But there are a few real standouts. Boom, for sure. Bad Idea, the best quality books, physical quality of books that I've seen in 20 years. The very best. They use 160-pound cover stock. They use 90-pound interior. The things were just solid.
I just wish that you didn't have to do like a Monty Python sort of Olympics to carry them.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you go over there and then you jump over here, and then we need a letter of this, and then we'll make sure that you're cool, and then how many tattoos do you have, and then how many of it is, it's like, Jesus Christ.
And then you got to buy a donut.
Right. Yes, there you go. It's like, let me just do the thing.
Yeah.
So unfortunately they do that, but I think it's as far as the physical quality of books, I think it does have a lot to do with the company. Like the smaller companies, I'm always surprised that their cover stock is that good.
Right.
Like, like Black Caravan, how do they, it's an imprint of Scout. It's not a big company.
Yeah.
How do they do that? But then you think, oh, you know what? They're not paying the guy from Black Eyed Peas to write Werewolf by Night. Okay, they're not paying Patton Oswalt to write MODOK.
Right.
And I'm not putting down any of those stories or anything. I'm just saying, when you get a musician or an actor or a comedian or, whatever that's very, very well known to write comics, you're going to be paying them a lot. Much more than,
Right.
These creators that are just starting on their stuff and just doing whatever, that's much, much, much better.
So one thing that I do think is really interesting, last week we were discussing distribution, the week before that indies. So way back in the day, 70s, 80s, the quality of your indie books were far, far below anything that you would get from the big two. And now it's really become just the opposite.
And back then they didn't have any money.
Right.
Those little indie ones were literally like basement or garage publishers.
Oh, yeah.
Kitchen Sink and San Francisco Comics and, Caliber and stuff. Yeah, you got that stuff. And they were literally like printing them in their garage. And
Right.
I mean, and just putting together whatever. I mean, half of these people were just doing it on like notebook paper and,
Oh, yeah.
anything they could do to get these things out and selling them regionally. And, you didn't see any of that stuff. And I think that's why the quality was rough then.
Right.
Is obviously because of that. They literally had no money.
Well, and I think that we see that reflected in the value of those books as well. Your Ninja Turtle 1 first print is worth a lot of money because they printed them off on a Xerox machine in their garage. And I'm hoping that we'll see a correlation where we'll have kind of a COVID era boom, where those books that were put out with short distribution and poor paper quality and stuff like that, because of those issues, will kind of demand a premium in the future. Books like Werewolf by Night.
And then they could. They very well could.
Strange Academy's already seeing it. Something's Killing Children, Ice Cream Man, books like that. And I kind of think we're starting to see that start. So we'll see how that progresses.
Well, and hopefully, I mean, like I said, hopefully we can get out of this. I don't think we will anytime soon.
Well, and the other side of that is if you're the mouse and you're sitting there saying, well, we were forced to do this, go with lower paper quality, but it ended up saving us, hundreds of $1,000s a month. Do we now go back to where we were and put out that extra money, or is that just money in the mouse's
That's
pocket?
just what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
And it took me a minute to realize you were talking about Disney when you said the mouse. It's like, so if you're a mouse and you're in a printing company and you're just sitting there and you're like drinking ink all day,
Like, I'm not pushing conspiracy theories, just asking the questions. Just asking the questions.
brother. Okay.
So, I mean, there's not a lot more that can be gone into as far as physical quality. I think across the board, collectors understand that it has changed. We know it's changed. We know where it's changed. Now, some people may know why it's changed, but it has changed. But more to the point, so the conversation started with somebody mentioning that part of the equation. Well, aggressively relaxing he was getting to the point, and I could tell he was getting kind of frustrated because he took that as this person saying that the big two, specifically Marvel, was putting out lower quality content,
like material.
right?
Okay.
And he makes the comment, the decline, question mark. Marvel and DC put out a ton of books that range in quality and audience. People talk about this decline, but cannot demonstrate in real life because it's a silly point to try to make. Says, I would love to see your art quality chart depicting the fall. I've read Marvel for decades, And this generalization is just cruel to a lot of really hardworking people.
I do agree with one thing, like really very much agree with his comment, is it is almost a silly argument to say this art sucks or this writing sucks, because you know what? Every single bit of that is subjective.
Right.
You know, I know people. I think Rob Liefeld's art is hilarious. Like, it's not good, okay, but I know people that will buy all of Liefeld's stuff.
I would be one of those people that think Liefeld is a very talented, very serious artist.
I think he has been clowning and trolling people for 30 years because his art gets worse. You know, if you go page to page, zero continuity in the way characters look, their haircuts, their costuming.
Mr. Liefeld, I know you probably watched this. You can block him, not me.
It's fine.
Okay.
You probably already have.
All right.
I truly think that he's messing with people now that make fun of his art.
I think he does that to some extent. I mean, for sure.
You know,
for sure.
and I don't like. Yeah, I don't like his art, but that's a personal preference. Other people love it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not huge on a lot of that 90s art. Obviously, I love Jim Lee's stuff. I think it's super cool.
Yeah.
I like Todd McFarlane's stuff quite a bit, even though it looks anatomically ridiculous. It's still cool. You know, yeah, and you know, that's what it's supposed to be. I mean, you got Spawn and Spider-Man and Venom and all. They're supposed to look cool. They're supposed to be like,
Right.
you know, it's not supposed to look super realistic.
So I do think, so looking at a company the size of a Marvel or a DC, where you've got 12 to 15 titles and half of them are Batman or Spider-Man at this point, you're not going to put your tried and true talent on Green Lantern that's not driving sales right now.
Yeah.
Or, you know, what, I don't even know what
But yeah, because you got to pay them a lot, and you want to make sure that they'll sell enough to pay them.
Right. And Batman, Detective, these are the titles that are driving those salaries. The Amazing Spider-Man. Occasionally you get an outlier like a Donny Cates that can write really anything.
Yeah.
It's Donny Cates for Marvel, Rom V for DC.
Yeah.
Whatever they jump into, they're going to knock it out of the park. And so you don't care what they're on, but you try to steer your top tier talent to the books that are going to bring in the sales.
Yeah.
But how do you get top tier talent too? You got to
Right.
develop them. They have to start somewhere. You know, they need a book to start on.
I mean, you know, you got anybody that is, you know, huge now was not huge initially. I mean, everybody
Right.
has to start.
Right.
Everybody has to come from nothing and be something. You know, I mean, there's very few overnight successes in the comic world. You know, Chad Harden used to, you know, when he first started out, he was in Digital Webbing Presents. It was an issue of that. And he,
Right.
you know, he came in and said, so I'm finally getting published. You know, can I order like 20 copies of this from you?
Right.
Like, sure. You know, because the only way they got paid doing digital webbing stuff is if they sold enough, and then they got some money back off their sales. So they would, like, you know, sort of back end sell that and order them and everything just because they wanted that to be part of their resume, which is super smart. I mean, it's not like, you know, tricky or sketchy at all. It's just like, hey, this is what we got to do.
Right.
You know, and then, you know, can I sign these? Can I leave? What, you know, what do I do? How can, yeah.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, all these guys would sell these little tiny books. You know, I mean, when Ryan started on Invincible, first off, that was a nothing book.
For a long time.
Yeah.
For a very long
You know,
time.
that was a nothing book. You know, Ryan was not a name. He was just a, you know, a guy that Kirkin could bring in cheaply and say, yeah, okay, sure, you got a book. It's really cool stuff. You know, and he, I think if I remember right, he got his whole start on like a, you know, an online art forum, or, you know, what's that thing called, the that starts with the D?
DeviantArt.
DeviantArt, yes. See, that's it. Thanks for giving me the D. So, you all right? You okay? Okay. So, you know, and like, yeah, he started on if I remember right, he started on that, and Kirkman saw him and said, "Oh yeah, that's really cool. Let's have you do that." And then he did, you know, later on, he did like a Spider-Man cover, and then he did this, and then he did that, and then all of a sudden,
Right.
you know, huge. And Invincible blew up, and then Marvel wanted him, and all this stuff was happening. Yeah, and it was great. So yeah, you know, you have to develop that talent. Everybody has to start somewhere. They have to start slow, and then get huge. And that's just the way it is.
And it's really always been like that. So to say that there's a decline in the quality of art or the quality of writing in the past few years,
I just think it's very different. You know, I mean, there's a lot of people that will come in here and will be like, yeah, I don't even buy new stuff. I don't even buy new stuff, and the art sucks. All computers and blah blah blah, and they don't even work anymore. And I'm like, well, no, it's not.
right?
You know, there are plenty of people. There are a lot of people that do it digitally, but there's also plenty of people that still, you know, sit down with a pencil and paper and just go at it. You know, and that's so cool, and I love that.
And just because your paintbrush is electronic, it doesn't take any less skill, from what I've seen. I mean, I can't draw on a piece of paper. I can't draw on a tablet. So either way, I'm not creating anything.
You couldn't even draw a friggin' bath.
I couldn't.
Anyway, sorry.
The only thing I could draw would be John Carter of Mars. Like, other than that, I got nothing.
Which number 2 came out.
I know, I gotta pick it up.
Yeah. You saw that on my picks of the week, just for you. Yeah, it's you know, there's so much. It's subjective. Grading subjective, art subjective, writing subjective, quality subjective. The only thing that's not subjective is the crappy covers that came out for a couple of weeks and now they're better. Again, back to his point, that is a good point. It's an unwinnable argument. You know, you can't say, oh, the writing is worse or the art's worse or anything like that, or the characters are worse. It's an unwinning argument or unwinnable argument. Like, I don't personally really, you know, enjoy the new Ms. Marvel. I read the first story when she was introduced, you know, I was like, no, okay, and whatever, you know, it's not my thing.
Right.
I don't think I need to read it. You know, she guest stars in something, okay, she's a fine, you know, there's whatever.
And I think that's another important distinction to make as well, because Daredevil is written for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy the hell out of this Daredevil run that's going on. Detective Comics, it's written for me. I've been enjoying the hell out of it.
They called me the other day and said, how is Eric enjoying his books? Yeah. And I said, he's really liking them a lot.
But like Miss Marvel, that new Raven comic, books like that, they're not written for me.
Yeah.
And they weren't intended to be written for me.
Right.
So I'm going to read one of those. I'm like, there's writing, there's some artwork, but I'm not going to buy the second issue. I got no reason to.
Right.
Because it really isn't. But my daughter loves the hell out of them.
Yeah.
That's her book, you know?
You know, and the it's not written for you is almost a played out argument now when you say, oh, I don't like
it really
that. Well,
is.
it's not written
really
for
is.
you, so what does it matter? It's like, you know, okay, don't stand above me and say it's not written for you, because I don't think can be subjective.
Right.
You know, or it's hard to make it subjective. It's pretty close to like a black and white thing, but no, it's not made for me. But if you get like a teenage girl or a teenage boy or, you know, anybody that watches this and there's something there that they can relate to and something that they like, and then the next day they come in and buy a couple of comic books.
Right.
You know, and they're like, oh yeah, this Ms. Marvel is pretty cool. You know, and they buy a Ms. Marvel and they're like, oh, she was also in Marvel Team Up? Okay, cool, I'll get that. I was like, oh yeah, Spider-Man's kind of fun. Maybe I'll get a Spider-Man book. You know, you're just bringing more people into it.
Right.
And I think by, you know, opening that up and making it more diverse in a good way, which we've spoken about, you know, making things more diverse like that and being able to bring different people into this hobby, I think is a great, great thing.
Well, I do feel that comic books are kind of an art form, a medium that allows, like they're kind of a holdout. Hollywood is very polarized. Hollywood, the film industry, television, it's all very polarized. You're either going to get bombarded with one side's message or the other. That's just how they are.
How do you figure? I haven't really noticed that, especially in the last maybe 5 years or so.
Yeah, I mean, and I see it a lot. I do think that for whatever reason, comic books is something that has really been shielded from that a lot. Like you have
to an extent, sure.
I mean, you've got fringes on both sides, and those are books that were not written for me, so I don't read them. But
Exactly.
I think for the most part, comic books as a medium are very representative of everybody and want everybody to be included.
Yeah.
And it may come from the fact that we were picked on for reading comic books in high school, and we wanted to be included, and now we want to include everybody else. I don't know.
And it's a strange thing to think, oh, now we are included.
Right.
Like this multi-billion-dollar business is what people made fun of us for.
Right.
You know, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, last week.
Yeah. So.
Oh, sorry. I went back.
It got real heavy there for a minute.
It's very traumatic for a second. I'm sorry. I had a little PTSD. Sorry about that.
And maybe in the future we can do a show on the whole political aspect of comic books and everything, because that's a real hot button issue.
So it's a dangerous one.
It is a dangerous one. It's a very dangerous one, and
it's one thing I really like about my store. You know, is there are super liberal people, there are super conservative people, but you know, we're all every time they're here to buy comics. They're here to talk about comics.
Right.
They're here to maybe shoot the poop. How's that? Yeah, you can't swear on YouTube, can you? At all? Never heard that. Okay, no. Anyway, but they want to sit here and shoot the jet. Oh, bad boy. They want to shoot the shit about comics or movies or music or whatever, and it's like I don't want to block that, because that's something that unites us here. It's like this joy, and it's like, oh man, you see people get passionate and happy, and their faces light up when they talk about a character that they love or something. And that's why I've tried to move things to a different point now, where instead of saying, and this does relate to the topic we're on, instead of saying, I don't like that sucked, that was terrible, or this is awesome, or this is great, and I've noticed people reciprocating this to me now. I say, I'm curious, why did you like that so much? Because it didn't resonate with me.
Right.
I want to know your views on why you really liked it, or why you didn't like something. It's somebody was in here today. We were doing exactly the same thing. They said, "Have you seen Doctor Strange yet?" I said, "Yes, I loved it." And they said, And I went, "Okay. Before we go there, and I really want to know this, tell me what you didn't like about it. Tell me why you didn't like it. And then I'll tell you why I liked it. Maybe we can meet in the middle and be like, yeah, oh, okay. That's your point.
Look at you guys being adults and all.
I know.
Like, the last thing I want to do is have that conversation with somebody about Doctor Strange, because I don't want to meet in the middle, because that means I would not love it as much as I did, and still do after seeing it 2 times.
But I can understand, why people had certain problems. That doesn't mean that it's going to influence or taint my can you say taint on YouTube?
Context.
Okay, all right, cool. I don't want it to taint my experience. Taint my taint.
Taint my taint.
Yeah. That's on aisle 4 at Willy's Wonderland. It's right next to the
spray on.
Right next to the Bushman 3000. But and that's not. I mean, that's not going to change whether I like it or not. And that's the thing. If you are arguing, or I would say conversing with a different point of view, and you're doing it respectfully, and you're not just like, yeah, your page sucks. If you're not doing that,
right,
then yeah, man, more likely than not. And people don't do that anymore. They're just like, this art sucks, that art sucks, this writing sucks, this is the best, this is the worst. There is no, it's pretty good, it could use improvement, or it's really gotten better over the years anymore. It's either this is good or this is bad. There's no nuance online anymore. Right. And that's why I think we argue so much about this stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's
so get off my lawn.
That's very true.
Sure.
So,
Old man yells at iCloud.
I did, of course. I always go around. We got access to like an entire comic book shop here, so it makes it a lot easier to have these conversations and kind of bring up examples. The first one I'm showing here, this is you've probably never even seen one of these. It's a very cool, or Cover of Darkness. It's a very cool book that I picked up at Rose City Comic Con.
Oh, okay.
The gentleman that wrote it was there, and he actually put it out in floppies. And then he had it put into a trade paperback form.
You know these are also floppy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, sorry. Different conversation.
But this is one, it's a completely independent book. He is what I call an underground book. Self-published. He had them printed himself. It's a great story. He's the writer. He created this whole world with gypsies and vampires and werewolves.
Oh my!
Sorry. Yes.
I was just waiting for 3 things.
Artwork is spectacular.
That's really cool.
Yeah, beautiful
That's
artwork.
really good.
And it's a great story. If you have a chance to get Cover of Darkness, please go search this out and support this guy and what he's doing.
Is he pulling that out of the? Oh wow, that's cool. Anyway,
it's super,
you know what this looks
cool.
like? This looks a lot like the was it Archaea that Boom puts out? The art looks very much. It's very European.
Yes. Yes.
It's super cool, and I don't mean that like in an arrogant American way. Like it's very European. It's very European. This is really cool. Yeah. See, there's that nuance again.
So this is a perfect example of what a starving artist can create. Like he just wants, and he's not making any money on it.
George might,
but it's a perfect example of what the quality that can be created by somebody just trying to put out their dream. You know,
yeah, it's really cool.
The
really
starving artist thing is something that you don't get a lot with the larger companies, because those guys have all made it. They
have so much money behind it. Yeah. You know, I mean, and I feel like they are hiring a lot of starving artists, but they're hiring from out of the country.
There's a lot of that going on.
And then they're not so starving if they give them, you know, $1,000 to do a book, or, you know, $100 to do a cover or something like that. And because if you're in a country where the economy's not so good and the American dollar is super strong, which is not a lot of countries right now, but you know, more than there were. You know, there's still a lot of countries out there where $1,000 can completely change somebody's life forever.
That's why you see,
wow, you know,
that's why you see a lot of cover artists coming out of the Philippines, for sure. Yeah. Maria Key, perfect example. Peach Momoko. Not the Philippines. She's Japanese, I believe. Anyway, but yeah. And
that's not going to sound good. You should cut that out.
And it's funny because you don't see them picking up a lot of European artists, because the European page rate right now is about quadruple what American comic book artists and cover artists are getting. That's why you see a lot of people like Del Auto selling their stuff in Italy, because he can make 4 times as much doing an exclusive
and
in
you
Italy.
Can't afford to hire Del Auto in Italy, or you know, any of these people, Mercandolfo from Italy. You can't afford to hire those people because they're making good money already, and they're making a ton of money there. But you can hire a 19-year-old kid that's got some skill from Brazil. That's that's a wrestling thing. That sounds like, doesn't it?
The skill from Brazil.
But you know, you can do that, and you can be like, okay, here, you page rates $20, you know, or whatever, and they're just like, oh my god, yes, breaking into the comic world, and I'm making some money, and everything's great.
Well, right now I'm working with a young lady from Brazil. She's from Brazil. And she's doing pretty good artwork for a project we're working on. And I mean, her page rate was $20. I'm paying her.
So I actually guessed everything you were just about to say on accident.
Her black and white page rate is $20, and I actually had to step up and be like, I'm going to pay you a little bit more than that, because I think your talent's worth more. And she did. And my third exclusive that I did with TM, Happy Pines, she is the artist on that book, and she's not polished. She's got growing to do and whatnot. But she's certainly worth a lot more than a $20 page
Sure,
rate.
yeah.
Especially since she's got an entire comic book under her belt and working on her
Right.
second one. So there's got to be something there.
Yeah. No, that's great.
So, Cover of Darkness. Am I getting that right? Why do I keep on? I keep on to say Curse of Darkness because there's a lot of curses in it.
It's a lot. Oh,
Not a lot of cursing, but there's a lot of curses.
oh, well, maybe I'm not interested.
Cover of Darkness, great book if you get the opportunity.
That looks really good. So that's really a beautiful book.
So I also grabbed this because this is your example of really high quality art. I don't think that Zenescope stories. It's like you said last week. They're not going to sweep the Eisners. I think they have that. I honestly think their writers have that potential with some of the books.
They do. Yeah.
Bell has been really good. Robin Hood, I think, has some good writing in it.
Yeah.
Not spectacular, but with a little bit of polish and
Right,
care
yeah.
into it. They could be really, really good characters, really good books. But they put out both, like, their quality in artwork is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Their interiors are great. Their covers are great.
Yeah. They stumble every now and again. Everybody does. And I get that. That's the way it goes.
Right.
But they also bring in some really, really good. Right, Hans Rodenoff came in and wrote some stuff for him that was not Grimm related. They
Right.
do a lot of really cool horror stuff like that, and there's a lot of really neat stuff they do as well. And they do bring bigger writers in to do stuff. I can't. It's slipping right out of my slippery brain right now. But there's somebody that they brought in that had done like a bunch of like Marvel and DC stuff, and they were writing some things. So they do now have, I think, the capacity to bring other artists and other writers in.
And one slippery slope that I can see and becoming an issue with a company like Zenescope, and I think that we've seen it with the Dynamite stuff. They had, like, Dynamite had this run with The Boys and Army of Darkness and some of those titles that really great art, really great writing. They were fun, they were engaging, they were just cranking out some great stuff.
Yeah.
And then they became a cover publishing company where they do 9 variants of every single book because they get spectacular art to put on the covers.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot easier for these companies to get a high quality artist for cheap, like a new artist that's doing really good work, as opposed to a writer that's at that level.
Yeah.
And new. Because writing is something, in my opinion, that you have to like work at to kind of polish that craft. And once you get polished, you're going to go to a Marvel and work on a minor title or a DC even go work on Buffy.
You really have to learn. I feel like you have to learn the ropes with comic writing more than you do with comic art, and that's not to say that either one is easier, but it's
So
art
a couple
is art.
examples there, and I brought this out because this is the one that actually shows the kind of weird interior art. So this, to me, the worst book in the last 20 years at least. John Carter of Mars. And I could even go as far as to say that the artwork just is not my thing. I think the artwork sucks. Like it's like somebody drew hexagrams and put solid colors in it, and
I haven't really seen the interior.
like the artwork is god awful on the thing. And I think
I was gonna say that's pretty, but that's bad.
that's pretty. The ads are beautiful. There's one on every other page.
Oh man, yeah, I see what you mean.
It's real blocky. It's not shaded real well at all. The coloring is just weird.
There's totally something wrong with his mouth there, but you know what this would be good as this artist. Who is the artist on this?
I don't know.
I'm gonna massacre that name.
It's Miss Nilsson's
George.
third grade class is who did the artwork on that book.
Man, that's a lot of people.
It was a collaborative effort.
You know, it was funny because I was just going to say, I feel like this art would be great for, like, Ms. Marvel, or
Yeah.
you know, the Marvel Rising stuff, or like an All Ages Squirrel Girl, or something like that. And I feel like that art would be fantastic for a young reader book.
Very true.
It'd be really good.
And
it's
it may
completely
be-
wrong for this, because this is aliens and monsters and sci-fi and you know,
And John
women
Carter
in
is-
tiny metal bikinis and
Yeah.
things like that. And that's like what this stuff is about, right?
Right.
But that, yeah, you're right. That art just does not match it.
It doesn't. And I could probably, because when I personally read a book, I don't study every panel. I just kind of quickly read the dialogue, and that's my thing. Every once in a while, I'll flip back through and look at the artwork. But I could almost forgive the artwork, but the story is completely disjointed.
Okay.
Like, it's all over the place.
Who's writing it?
You're in, you know, or post Civil War
Chuck
New
Brown.
England.
I don't know him either.
In one page, and then the next page, you're in the halls of the Martian King. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
The only
It's all
people
over
I
the place.
like even recognize on this, it's two names: Nate Cosby and Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
And Edgar Rice Burroughs had a little less to do with that book than you think.
I feel.
So, I mean, that's the perfect storm of substandard art and just a disjointed story, and to me, very poor quality.
Okay.
Don't care for it.
Yeah, I haven't read it, so I can't speak to the writing. But the art, like I said, it looks more like an all ages book, really.
Which, if you want to do an all ages John Carter, by all means, please do so.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. So that's kind of where we're at on my thoughts on quality, production, and artistic. Anything else you would like to throw in?
No, I just you know, like I said, it's hard to disagree with anybody on this stuff because
It
it's
is.
very subjective. You know, and it's weird how sometimes those subjective opinions come together. Sometimes they don't.
Right.
Oh, what was his name again?
Whose name?
That made that comment?
Aggressively relaxing.
Hi, aggressively. I forgot to do the greeting. Okay.
He'll enjoy that. He's in the chat every week. So
Excellent.
But I do appreciate the input, and it did make me think of it differently.
Yeah.
Because it's just easier to say the quality has gone downhill when, in all actuality, across the board, the quality may even be improved a little
He's
bit.
probably gone up, I think.
Yeah. Like, we're getting more inclusive stories. We're getting more comprehensive stories and higher quality art because these artists are pushing each other to get into the mainstream. So
Yeah.
I can see as a whole, especially with the big two, that things are improving quality-wise.
Yeah.
They need to fix their paper quality.
Cool.
So, all right. So next week, traders, we're going to talk about sustainability. It's come up, and I got a video that we will splice in next week. That's going to encompass things like larger print runs, cost of new books, cost of back issues, the secondary market, which if you don't have a secondary market, you don't have a business. I mean, your business wouldn't survive without it. So,
Right. That's what got me through COVID.
yeah.
I mean, I didn't have COVID. I mean, like the COVID days.
The COVID era.
The COVID era, yeah.
Yeah.
Selling to people and coming in and talking to them very closely got me through my COVID.
Yeah. So next week we're going to talk about the industry's sustainability. So if you have any input on that, just shoot me a message. You can contact us on Facebook, Instagram. Leave a message in the comments below what you think about these subjects. And if you'd like to shoot a little less than 1 minute video that we can splice into the show and discuss, we're happy to do that as well. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.
Yes. Ring that. I got a bell. ring that bell.
Smash that like button. We'll see you next time, traders.